Well, Taylor, what happens when you mix a hurricane and ACC football?
Probably a big slip and slide.
A major slip and slide. There's more water on the field that's grass. We got 3 games to talk about on the ACC slate that happened on October 8th, 2016. That's coming up next year on Game of Storms.
This is the X Sports Network.
Welcome back to our next edition of Game of Storms. This time, Taylor, we're going back into the world of college football once again. Our last college football episode, we dealt with snow in Louisiana. This time, we're dealing with rain, and a lot of rain, and a hurricane during hurricane season in North Carolina, which when you look at September, when you look at October, that's kind of right in hurricane season. And it's almost every year some games are getting moved around or some games are getting pushed back in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, that whole area.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. Somebody's going to get affected by something. And obviously you just hope it's not a catastrophic hurricane. But, yeah, you can kind of bet on a yearly basis, especially around that September, October time frame, that you're probably getting some college football game across the South, whether it's Florida, the Carolinas, heck, even sometimes inland like an Alabama game or a Georgia game or even an Arkansas game can get impacted by some of that stuff.
Yeah, so tell us, when is hurricane season? I think a lot of people kind of misrep because they think, hurricane in October, but that's actually more common than what people think.
It is, and it runs from June 1st all the way through, believe it or not, November 30th. So it goes all the way through just past Thanksgiving. And you can get storms that develop before then and after them. We've had one of the busiest hurricane seasons was honestly not that long ago, and this was where we had we didn't have a secondary list. We ended up going into the Greek alphabet. So if you ended up getting like Hurricane Alpha, Beta, Gamma, all that stuff. And when we had that last hurricane season where we had like 26 or 27 storms that were named, you had some go into December. So it's not unheard of, but the peak of the hurricane season is roughly right around September. So that's when everything is kind of good ingredient-wise, and of course that's right in the middle of football season.
Yeah, so basically June to first part of December.
Basically.
And then Christmas season all the way through May is non.
Correct.
You get the occasional hurricane in May just because of some things that can help develop out in the ocean.
Oh, for sure. You can get a storm that develops in May. I've seen some that have tried to pop up in April before. Yeah. So it's not unheard of. It's just the main ingredient factor is going to be between June and the end of November.
Well, the games we're talking about happened on October 8th, 2016. The first one that really comes into everyone's mind was Notre Dame at NC State. Now, we had 3 games that happened that day on Tobacco Road. You had North Carolina State hosting Notre Dame. You had a top 25 matchup, a pretty pivotal matchup between North Carolina, who's hosting Virginia Tech. Then a non-conference game, kind of rare non-conference game this time of year, that Army was visiting Duke. So let's look at the first game that we had. NC State, their head coach was Dave Doran. NC State finished 7-6 on the year. They won 4 out of their first 5. Lost 4 in a row after this game against Notre Dame. 3 of those to ranked teams: Clemson, Louisville, and Florida State. So you had Clemson, which by the way won the national championship. You had Louisville with that guy in Baltimore that's pretty good right now.
Just a bit.
And then Florida State, was right in that mix. So and then they ended up winning 3 out of their last 4, including taking care of Vanderbilt in the Independence Bowl 41-17. And man, when you take a look at this, it's like, okay, well, they won 4 of their first 5 and lost 4 in a row to 3 of the best teams in the conference. This is at the point when you remember this argument. Everyone thought that the ACC could compete with the SEC.
Yeah, exactly. That was, especially with Clemson, that was the whole Clemson versus Bama thing that happened on like every single year for like a 4-year stretch or something like that. And this was that kind of pivotal moment where it's like finally the ACC looks like they could be comparable to the SEC. And, I mean, NC State was kind of in that conversation too. They had some good teams, like you mentioned, and then all of a sudden, especially this season after this game, the bottom fell out, literally, not only in the game but also from the team aspect. But
I think the competition had a lot to do with it.
The competition had a lot to do with it too. But yes, this was that period where the ACC really, really went neck to neck with the SEC.
Yeah, and quarterback led by quarterback Ryan Finley, 355 yards Passing 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Running back Matt Days, 1,166 yards, 10 touchdowns. Offensively, averaged 416 per game. Defensively, pretty good, 353 per game. Their head coach, as we mentioned, Dave Doran, he's about to enter year number 15 at North Carolina State. He spent a couple years at Northern Illinois, had two 11-plus year seasons over there with the Huskies, kind of that line of successful Northern Illinois coaches that find big-time jobs, and that kind of that pipeline. It's kind of halted a little bit, but can always get ramped up again. But since he's been in NC State, Taylor, hasn't had a double-digit win season. He's had 4 9-win seasons, and all 4 of those came after this year.
Yeah, and they've had some really good football teams. I mean, some of especially when you're trying, obviously Clemson at this point is the top dog in the ACC, and they had some pretty good games, if I remember correctly, against Clemson, and some of them that honestly you thought NC State was going to be able to pull out and win, and of course Clemson ends up coming away with it. But they've had some really good football teams. But you're right, it feels like he hasn't been able to get over that hump of I need that 10-win season, I need that 11-win season. 9 wins is still not bad, but you want to get over that hump.
Carter Finley Stadium is such a tough place to play. How many times have we seen a ranked Florida State or Clemson go in there and struggle, or this Notre Dame team go in there and lose? It's happened. Speaking of Notre Dame, oh boy, 2016 was when we thought the whole kit and caboodle was raining down on poor Brian Kelly. They finished 4-8. Do you know what they started ranked in the country, Taylor?
I want to say that they were like 7 or 8.
They were 10th.
They were 10th, yeah.
And they got off to a poor start. They were ranked for the first 4 weeks of the season at 18th, and then bottom fell out. So offensively, averaged 417 yards per game. Defensively, gave up 378, had a plus .3 turnover margin, led by quarterback Deshaun Kaiser, 25 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Not bad numbers. Josh Adams, a running back, 933 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now remember this name, Aquarius Satan Brown, 961 yards, receiving 9 touchdowns. Defensively, not real good. 9 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. Taylor, they just have 14 sacks in a 12-game season.
Man, honest, I knew that they struggled that year because I remember that team, and man, only 14 sacks.
14 sacks. And guess how many ranked teams they played that year?
It wasn't a lot, was it?
No, it wasn't a lot.
It was like two or 3. Yeah.
It was 2. Michigan
was
State
USC
State
one of
and
them?
USC.
Yeah.
The only 2 ranked teams they played. So I was going back and looking at the schedule and go, with Brian Kelly and Notre Dame, you should have won at least 8 with that schedule.
Oh,
and you
for
only
sure.
Won 4.
Yeah, and this was before. I believe that they do an ACC schedule now. I think is what they do.
They've got like a few. They give you 4.
It's like a flex or something like that.
And they've got some other ones.
Yeah, this was before they did that. So this was just you're playing whoever. Obviously, you always play USC.
Yeah.
And I think Michigan State's usually on their schedule.
Yeah, they've been off the last couple years.
Yeah.
Same with Michigan. That's fallen off.
Yeah.
And USC's about to fall off. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, at some point, if you're going to do all of this, which actually the USC is more of a USC thing than it is a Notre Dame thing. But the Michigan thing was a Notre Dame thing. At some point, it's like, okay, if you're your traditions are going away, just join a conference already.
Yeah.
Just get it over with.
And we all know that the whole thing that's stopping them from doing that is NBC because they have that contract with them. But who knows what's going to happen?
Oh, just get Jace Collinsworth off our TV for the love of all things sacred and holy. God bless his heart. A lot of that was not his fault, but that's some inside baseball stuff there. So their head coach is Brian Kelly. So this is his worst season by far as a head coach. He had great years in Central Michigan, did a great job at Cincinnati. I got to see a couple of those teams against West Virginia and Marshall. But after this, 2016 was his worst year ever.
Yeah.
He pulled off 10-plus win seasons from 2017 to 2023.
Yep.
And which that last one ending this past year.
Yeah.
When they won 9 games.
Yeah.
So he almost extended the streak. So I don't know what it was about 2016, but it really woke him up and really made him change as a head coach.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just things that he was doing off the field and on the field coaching wise, but
recruiting wise,
something like that. But honestly, when you look at Brian Kelly's resume as a whole, that really is just a hiccup or a glitch.
Yeah.
Obviously, something was wrong, and it got changed. But he is a really, really good coach. But even with him, it seems like he can't get over that hump, which is now getting into a playoff and actually making a run and competing for a national championship.
We got him into a national championship game, and he made a couple playoffs.
Yeah.
He's done a good job. 21 years as a head coach, 195 and 73.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's 5 wins away from. He's already qualified for the. Thank God they got rid of that in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Where you had to win 100 wins to qualify.
Yeah.
That's one of the dumbest things ever. But let's go on to the other game. North Carolina finished 8-5 on the year. They're ranked as high as 15th, and eventually finished unranked. They were Fave's 5 ranked teams in 2016, went 2-3 during that time. Their quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, who go on to be was he the first overall pick that year?
I think so. It was either first or second. He was high up.
He was really high. I know he's a first-round pick. This year he threw for 3,748 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Running back Elijah Hood, 858 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. Wide receiver Ryan Switzer, 1,112 yards, 6 touchdowns. A Charleston, West Virginia boy, left as the ACC's all-time leader in kick and punt returns and in touchdowns in a career.
Wow.
So did a really good job over there. Defensively, had 13 forced turnovers, but only had 2 interceptions.
Wow.
The whole year.
Wow.
13 games, and they had 2 interceptions.
Jeez.
So, and this is where the issues are. Offensively, averaged 439 yards per game. Defensively, gave up 480 yards per game.
That's not a recipe for success.
Not really good. Larry Fedora was their
Yeah.
head coach at the time. This is what led eventually to Mac Brown going back. 11 years as a head coach at Southern Miss in North Carolina. 76-62 all-time record. Had 2 11-plus win seasons at Southern Illinois, just 1 at North Carolina, and that came before 2016 over there in North Carolina. Virginia Tech came in as the 25th ranked team in the country. They finished 10-4, finished ranked 16th in the country, got to the ACC title game where they took Clemson to the brink.
They
Clemson
did.
beat them 42-35. That was a really, really good game offensively. Averaged 445 yards, gave up only 340. Remember those old Bud Foster lunch pail defenses and the special teams from the old Frank Beamer days. And this was Fuente's first year. He took over for Frank Beamer there as a legend. Led by quarterback Gerard Evans, threw for 3,552 yards, 29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Was also the team's leading rusher, 846 yards, and added 12 touchdowns on the ground. Isaiah Ford, receiver, just a hair under 1,100 yards, 7 scores. Also at receiver, Cam Phillips, 983 yards and 5 touchdowns defensively. Forced 25 turnovers and 32 sacks.
Wow. I mean, that's a really, and honestly, I mean, Virginia Tech has had some good teams, and that was a good team. And like you said, they took Clemson. I mean, almost got it done in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and it capped off by Arkansas had them down 20 points in the Belk Bowl.
That's right.
And they made this incredible comeback after that. I was covering Virginia Tech at the time, so I was actually at this game we're about to talk about, and I was at the bowl game, so it was a lot of fun. Mentioned Justin Fuente, his first year as a head coach there, did a great job in Memphis before he took over the Hokies. Unfortunately for Fuente, his best year was
this
2016 there at Virginia Tech. Next year went 9-4, and then you had a 6-7 year, and then they had a 5-6 and 5-5 year, and ended Virginia Tech's infamous bowl streak during that point in time. So that's where Virginia Tech was. So let's go into these games. Start off with NC State and Notre Dame, and before we go into the games, Taylor, it's called Game of Storms.
Yeah.
And we had not just any sort of storm. We had a pretty significant one that was coming through the area at this point.
It was a hurricane, and it was a very strong one early on. Its kind of lifespan, if you will, as it was going into the Caribbean and just kind of skirted up the East Coast. And I mean, the way that all the hurricanes are usually structured is that kind of northern and what we call the eastern or right quadrant of the storm. So if you're looking at it from like a coordinate standpoint, it's north and east side of the storm. That's where you're going to have the bulk of the precipitation, what we call the rain shield, if you will. So that being skirting the coast, that rain shield is going to be firmly in place across parts of the Carolinas, and that just dumped inches and inches and inches of rain. I think some of them places in the Carolinas ended up getting around like a foot of rain with this hurricane. So it definitely impacted not only these games, but it impacted the entire region with just soaking rain.
And mainly, most of the time when those hurricanes come through, they come through at like Greenville, right off the coast, and they always find their way going right through Tobacco Road. So you think about all the schools that could be impacted. North Carolina State, North Carolina, Duke, Wake Forest, and that all goes to and all the other FCS programs that were playing at that point in time as well. So start with the first game, NC State and Notre Dame, just their second all-time meeting at the time. You want to guess how many times they've met up? You know, these are two kind of historic programs. How many times they've actually played in football?
I'm gonna say like 8. Lower, like 4 or 5.
Just 4. This was only their second meeting. Their first ever meeting was in 2003. This was just their second meeting all time. Starting off the scoring, Kyle Bombard with a 38-yard field goal in the first quarter. NC State leads it 3-0. That's the score that they had going into halftime. Third quarter, after a punter had his knee on the ground when he caught the snap. That led to Notre Dame score, Justin Yoon, a 40-yard field goal, tied up at 3. Then in the fourth quarter, special teams comes up to play again. The Wolfpack gets a block punt. Dexter Wright picks up the dead ball and takes it into the end zone, and the Wolfpack would win this 10-3. And Taylor, the visuals on this, it looks like they are playing in the middle of the Florida Everglades.
Just like a giant slip and slide. It is. You obviously have seen ball games and stuff where it's raining, and you see that shine on the field because there's some water there. But this is like, this is no longer water on grass. This is just like there's water and there's almost no grass to speak of.
And this game happened at noon Eastern, which would be 11 Central our time. So it was happening right, not necessarily the eye of the storm. I think it just passed right before kickoff. But it was like on the back end of hurricanes, and stop me if I'm explaining this wrong, but on the back end of hurricanes, it's all rain.
When you go up. So the way that it was tracking was along the coast. So once you get to that kind of left side of the storm, the rain you're getting that rain on that northern side, and then you start to dry out just a little bit. So they were obviously getting the bulk of the rain, and then as it kind of moved by, it started to kind of weaken just a little bit. You still get rain, get some rain showers, but you start getting a little bit of that dry air punching on that left side.
Absolutely, and you look at these fields, you're like, what's wrong with the drainage system? I'm like, well, just a foot of rain's dropping.
Oh yeah, you can't handle that. No, you can't. Exactly. That's why we always talk about. You might have a good area that's not really prone to flash flooding or flooding, but you get dumped on with a foot or 2 feet of rain, you're going to have issues.
And all these fields we're talking about are grass fields. These weren't. They're turf. Well, Carter Finley's not, but Duke and North Carolina are now turf fields.
Right.
At the time, they were grass fields. So the quarterbacks combined in this game, Taylor, 14 of 38. For 81 yards and an interception, and that interception was thrown by Deshaun Kaiser in the end zone. Notre Dame actually moved the ball a little bit. I don't want to say move the ball a little bit. They had better opportunities than what NC State did. First downs, Notre Dame 10, NC State at 14. Total yards, NC State had 193, Notre Dame just 113. Each side combined for 10 fumbles. Notre Dame had 4, lost 2. NC State had 6. And lost 2. This one, it kind of shocked me a bit. Just 7 combined penalties for 60 yards.
Well, nobody wanted to touch each other. Nobody could touch each other. They couldn't touch each other.
Couldn't touch each other there. How many combined punts did you think these two teams had?
Oh, geez. I would... Combined punts?
Combined punts, yeah.
This might be a stretch. 15?
Actually, just 7.
Just 7.
I was
okay.
really shocked by that when I looked at that. I was
Yeah.
like, just 7? Because I was actually listening, but the turnovers, both teams.
That's true. They would give it up before they could even
and
punt.
the fumbles
Yep.
and whatnot. And when I saw, I was like, really, just 7?
Yeah.
Like I had to double take and look at it. So that was a crazy game. Obviously, NC State doesn't really turn it into much. That's when
Yeah.
they go into that stretch from playing those 3 ranked teams in
Yep.
4 games, and we all know what happened to Notre Dame after that. But at 3:30, you had a ranked matchup, pretty big one in the ACC, Virginia Tech and North Carolina. This is actually the 32nd meeting between the two. They've met up 38 times all time. Who do you think has a series lead between the two?
I'm going to lean Virginia Tech.
25-13 all time in 38 meetings. The first time they actually met was in 1902.
Wow, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, just when you thought you would think NC State and Notre Dame have met up.
Oh, yeah,
since
exactly, yeah.
1902, but Virginia Tech and North Carolina. So the scoring starts in the first after a Trubisky turnover. Joey Sly hits a pair of field goals in the first quarter from 35 and 28 yards out. Hokies lead at 6-0. Second quarter, Nick Weiler gets it through the uprights for the Tar Heels at 6-3. Then Gerard Evans comes alive, a 1-yard touchdown pass to Chris Cunningham. Hokies lead at 13-3 at the half. Third quarter, Evans is going to find the ever-reliable Sam Rogers for a 22-yard touchdown. Hokies lead at 20-3. Then Evans going to call his own number, a 1-yard touchdown run, so 27-3. Then the scoring is capped in the fourth. Trayvon McMillian, a 4-yard touchdown run. All Hokies from there, Taylor. They dominated in this game, 34-3.
They dominated, and that was a complete different game than that UNC, or not UNC, the NC State matchup.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that does go to show that even in these conditions, you can score, but a lot of the games that you get in that, you're going to end up having a lower scoring kind of defensive affair.
Yeah. Total yards, Virginia Tech at 264. North Carolina had 131. Turnovers, big difference. Virginia Tech had 2. North Carolina with 4. Another low combined penalty. 13 combined penalties for just 78 yards in this one. How many combined punts do you think we had in this game?
That one I'm going to say 8.
Higher.
Higher? 10?
Higher.
Was it 15?
It's 13.
It's 13.
and Virginia Tech had 10.
Wow.
So, North Carolina turned it over 4 times.
Yeah.
So I thought the 13 was going to go on the other side, but the
Right.
13 was in this one. So that was crazy.
Even though you punted, you still had multiple opportunities and you capitalized.
Yeah, I remember being. I don't even remember. I was at the game. I don't even remember the punts. The only thing I remember I remember the scoring. I remember Virginia Tech just dominating, and I remember nobody being there.
Yeah.
Like North Carolina doesn't have like a Tennessee or an
Right.
Alabama stadium. Most ACC schools don't. I think Clemson and Florida State might be
They're the biggest, yeah.
ones. There's no 100-seat venues, but there's still in Virginia Tech's is 65 or 70,
Yeah.
and the stands are like this.
Yeah.
So you're literally like your feet are on top of someone's shoulders. It's a great place. If you've ever gone to Lane Stadium, experience Enter Sandman, and when Virginia Tech's good, it's one of the loudest places you ever go to. So Virginia Tech, like we mentioned, goes to the ACC championship game. North Carolina, Larry Fedora kind of falls apart after that. He has 3 really bad years, eventually gets fired, eventually leads to the Mac Brown years. But we had another game going on in this exact same time.
Yep.
Duke and Army in this game. Duke wins at 13-6, and you would think, Taylor, that Army, with their power running game, this would be tailor-made
Yeah.
for their style, but it was Duke coming away with the win in this one.
Yeah, and I want to say that Duke, I think they had a decent defense that year. And so, you would obviously think that Army being that kind of wishbone, that kind of old-style football offense, that they would end up, having both running backs, at least over 100 yards each. But, this was a game that just they couldn't really get it done on the ground.
Both teams combined to complete a whopping 30% of their passes in this game. Duke was up 13-0 at the half. One of the touchdown passes comes from Daniel Jones.
The old Daniel Jones.
Yeah, he was not actually the starting quarterback in this game. He came in later. They had 16 combined punts between the two in this game. And actually, for 38 yards per kick average, turnovers is what killed Army in this one, 3 to just 1 for Duke. So Duke, who only finished 4-8 that year, kind of a lone bright spot. Army did finish 8-5 under Todd Monken. It's kind of when they started to get that ball rolling and turning into a pretty good program. So Taylor, the big question coming out, well, number one, before we get to the big question that we always ask, what is it, and I was thinking about this because I'm looking at the distances in these field goals, 38, 40. You know, they're not easy, but they're not hard, not difficult. And, you know, just I always think about bad weather and kicking. You think it's a nightmare, but, you know, Adam Vinatieri kicked a 42-yard field goal, a couple 40-yarders in the Tuck Rule game through a blizzard. And you got these guys on grass, not turf, on grass, slick conditions, puddling conditions, hitting 35, 38, 40-yard field goals. How did these guys able to do that in these conditions?
I mean, that just goes to show how good of a kicker that they are to begin with. I mean, obviously you think about, okay, well, you can kick it, you know, 50, 60 yards, whatnot. But, I mean, you're going to have games just like this where the conditions are not going to be ideal.
Right.
How are you going to be able to perform? And, yeah, I mean, it is definitely hard to kick in a blizzard or a giant rainstorm or hurricane.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you are confident, you know that you can at least get some good footing, and you know that, hey, there's nothing in the back of your head that's saying, if I take that next step, I'm going to slip and pull like a Charlie Brown or something like that. But you got that confidence. I mean, you can. Obviously, it goes to show that you can still kick in those tough conditions, but you have to be really, really good to be able to, you know, come through consistently in something like that.
Big question that we have at the end of every game of Storms. Taylor, did weather have a factor in these games?
Oh, you know it did. Absolutely, you know it did.
Easiest one we've had.
Easiest
probably.
one we've had so far. And, I mean, that's especially you just go back to that NC State Notre Dame game. Right. I mean, what was 13-6, I think is what you said?
10-3.
10-3. And then it was 13 for Duke on
13-6.
13-6. And so those two games really were impacted by this game because obviously you see offenses struggled. You had a lot of turnovers, so obviously the ball's wet. You're going to fumble it easier. You're going to be throwing picks easier because balls can easily just slip out of your hand and float. So those two games specifically, yes, really, really impacted. The thing that shocked me was that Virginia Tech one because that one seemed like, yes, it had definitely had an impact on it because you had to probably change up your offensive scheme a little bit, but they still performed very well.
Yeah.
And obviously Virginia Tech had a really good team that year. So at the end of the day, I'm not shocked that they had a game like that, but under the conditions, it was kind of maybe an overperforming game.
Or maybe you're not shocked that Mitch Trubisky played awful.
Or, not shocked with that, yeah.
Mitch had one good year in Chicago. We hate on Mitch a little bit too much sometimes, but we're going to find out if they can make something out of Caleb Williams.
Let's see.
That has nothing to do with more of the Bears. I think it's a Caleb Williams thing. Well, Taylor, another good show here that we had. Loving talking about some sports and some weather combined.
Oh,
so we got another good one coming up next week. So for now, for Taylor Plott, I'm AJ Good. We'll see you guys later.
This is the X Sports Network.